Welcome to the Clermont County Board of Commissioners meeting for this beautiful day, October the 16th, 2024. Prior to starting our meetings, we always invite local clergy to come in and lead us in prayer. Today is no exception. Pastor David Tennant is here today. He is from the Owensville United Methodist Church. David, you have been here many, many times.
Thank you.
Appreciate you always supporting us.
Well, my pleasure.
Podium's yours. You lead us in prayer.
You would be in prayer. Father, we thank you for this beautiful day, for a beautiful season. Yes, a little crisp, but still beautiful. And yet, creation nature is more than just beauty. It holds many lessons beyond therapy and a place to hike and console ourselves. Many lessons. And I'm reminded 30-some years as a naturalist of the whirligig beetle. I'm sure each one of us have seen it as a child or an adult spinning around on the top of the water. And Father, you designed it with divided eyes. It sees below the water surface and it sees above the surface at the same time. So Father, for this body at this time, as well as each one of us, give us that divided vision in the decisions we make this day, in this hour, we would be aware of where we live and our job, but that we would also be looking above, that we would look for you for answers, certainly in this contentious election season. But even in our smallest decisions we will make today, help us see below on this earth, but also see above. We ask this in your name. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you. Amen. Captain Stillworth is with us here today. Would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please?
Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Captain. We will move on with our prepared agenda. Call this meeting to order. And item number B is our first agenda item, the approval of regular session minutes of 10/9/2024. Board, you've had these minutes, had an opportunity to review them, make any comments that you needed. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
I'll make the motion.
Second.
Been moved and second. Roll call, Gail.
Commissioner Batchelor?
Yes.
Commissioner Corcoran?
Yes.
Commissioner Painter?
Yes. We are up at item number C. Item number C is public participation. If there's anyone that would like to participate this morning from the public, I would give some instructions first. During this time, the board does not answer questions nor engage in debate. No member of the public may comment about a matter that is not within the purview of the commissioner's responsibility. Commissioners are not expected to comment on matters brought to the board during this time. However, they can. And each speaker shall speak once and be recognized by the board president before it's speaking. In accordance with the rules, you'll have 5 minutes. You would like to speak? You have the podium. State your name and your address. Thank you.
My name's Stephanie Freeborn. I live at 2517 State Route 222 in New Richmond. Even if you actually follow through with putting the shelter out to bid to a humane society, that will take several months to happen. And these animals are on site at this shelter today. The shelter is severely over capacity, and you've got 20 dogs living in pop-up crates. They are suffering and they have immediate needs. We've already talked about how you are dangerously understaffed, how you only provide staff for very inadequate hours, how illness and disease are rampant at the shelter, and how the dogs suffer from the inhumane and inadequate environment. You have a completely incompetent and untrained acting shelter director making uneducated and harmful decisions that you have just given a pay raise to, rewarding her for her incompetence and completely wasting our tax dollars. Yet you refuse to raise the pay rates on the kennel tech positions, which you urgently need filled to provide care to these dogs. It's reported by those on site that you are still to this day medically neglecting the animals, that you have banned volunteers from holding play groups and conducting temperament testing in the area where there is water available, and that you have also banned volunteers from moving these over 80 dogs into rescues where the dogs can get a veterinarian, a nicer, more humane facility where they won't be subjected to developing illness and disease, more adequate outdoor space to run, a greater number of staff and staff who are actually qualified and trained to care for them, and a proven better chance of getting adopted. Since October 1st, your staff has only vetted 5 applications, and these over 80 dogs are not being adopted from the shelter. If you aren't allowing these over 80 dogs to be moved out into rescues where they could get the proper care that they deserve, and as more dogs continue to come in, is your plan to force these dogs to live in pop-up crates indefinitely? And where will you put any more incoming dogs when you have no room left for them? Someone on site has already reported on October 11th that there are dogs at the shelter in cages that are much too small to accommodate them, and that they are living in these insufficiently sized cages for up to 23 hours a day. A dog at the shelter named Bordeaux is self-harming by constantly biting on her cage door to get out until her mouth is bloody, as she is suffering mentally from being forced to live in a cage for months. David Painter, just last week, you denied this dog named Bordeaux, who is suffering, from being able to go into a rescue where she could get relief from her suffering and all of the proper care that they could provide. Can you explain to our community why you are not acting in the best interest of these dogs and allowing the volunteers to start immediately moving these over 80 dogs out into rescues? And David Painter, I'm asking you to answer that today.
And here's my answer. You wanted it. I didn't deny removing a dog, period. Never made a decision like that. And again, you come before this board and give false information.
That's not true.
That is true.
Michelle Gonzalez, a
I've never
volunteer on site,
I've never talked to
reported
Michelle Gonzalez.
that you denied Bordeaux going to the League for Animal Welfare.
If you know anything about the Board of Commissioners, one commissioner doesn't make a decision. And I've never spoken.
There was already a discussion about this.
There's
in
no sense in us
another
going back and
commissioners'
forth.
meeting.
You have
But
5
you
have 5 minutes.
Your acting shelter director sent an email to the volunteers stating that she was requiring board approval for animals to go into rescues. And they have that email, Dave.
We went over that last week here. And we told you that that's not the case.
We've got
So,
the email.
so you have an email. Did that email come from Dave Painter?
It came from your shelter
Hold on,
director.
hold
It's
on.
Direction from
Hold
you.
on. Did it come from Dave Painter?
It came from your
It
shelter
didn't
director.
come from me, right? Right?
It came from your shelter director.
You have 16 seconds. Thank you. Next.
Good morning. I'm Larissa Gottschalk, 546 Hamblin Drive. It's spelled Gottschlich. Good morning. At this point, you all have heard from my fellow volunteers, residents of Clermont County, about the current conditions of the shelter. And if you are present or follow these weekly meetings, you have also heard about the infinite issues the shelter is facing and has faced in the past 3.5 years. I am not going to repeat them. We all know what's going on. But what I want to talk today, it's about our commissioners and the inertia of acting on behalf of the animals during these 3.5 years. And let me be clear, I don't care who runs the shelter. I don't care if it's the county. I don't care if it's a humane society. I care for the animals. And the same way that I'm speaking here today, if a humane society fails to do their job, I am going to be speaking on behalf of those dogs. So, caring for the dogs has not been a reality based on the management of the shelter for these 3.5 years. And granted, I was a volunteer at Clermont Care before the shelter took over. I was one of the volunteers that came here that fateful Wednesday asking you guys to reconsider the bids. So I have been heavily involved on what's going on for this past 5 years in the shelter. We just need to give the dogs an opportunity to thrive. In the past years, our volunteers have flooded this meeting to showcase the issues and the inhumane conditions of the dogs, things that go beyond what volunteers can do on a daily basis. I have to say I'm very impressed with the eagerness of the commissioners to act and better the conditions of the shelter today. But that raises my question, why now? Why not doing your job for 3.5 years? The conditions of the shelters did not change dramatically for this past year where volunteers are coming here. Is it because the media has been here? Is it because now the press and the public is aware of the issues? Or is it election? We know election is coming and 2 of your seats are up for grabs. So I wonder why now and not for the past 3.5 years. I question also if you have visited the shelter this 3.5 years. I know Mr. Painter has been in the shelter regularly in this past month, but why not before? Why not seeing the conditions, and why let the conditions get to the point that they are today? Have you heard about Karen? Have you heard about Emma? Jake? We do. We volunteers do. We know them by their names. We know their stories. And we do what goes beyond our means to help those dogs. We transfer them to rescues. We give them opportunities to thrive where otherwise, if they were still at the shelter, they would probably be euthanized now because they were deteriorating at your care. I don't think you know what happens to dogs after they leave the shelter, and that's unfortunate. We only have seen positive stories of these dogs. Quick question, do you know who is our longest resident at the shelter? Have you heard of Rocket? Rocket has been in the care of the shelter almost as long, or if not longer, than you guys have been in charge of it. It is because of volunteers and the ignorance of private citizens that Rocket got access to a trainer, and Rocket went from being a red clip, a dog that nobody could handle, to being a dog allowed in playgroup and now having a fair chance of being adopted. Day in and day out, our volunteers take the time off the outside busy schedule to care for these animals, to meet to discuss fundraising ideas, to talk about how to pay for medical bills. And guess what? They do that for free. And I repeat, it is done for free, even on Sundays after church. It baffles me, the statement that Mr. Painter did, saying that county employees were there on site on Sundays after church. We do that as well, and we don't get paid for that. With 30 seconds, I'm just gonna skip part of my speech and say, like, it is so clueless that your actions, that it makes me laugh. Let's get back to the basics. I don't know if you know what takes to take care of a dog, the difference between a dog and animal. Mr. Painter, dogs don't get watered. They get fed, they get provided water, and they need that on a daily basis, not just on Sundays. Maybe next time we get a cactus farm that doesn't need help.
Thank you. Next. Go ahead. Go ahead. You stood up. Tell us your name and your address.
Someone who couldn't be here today because she's working, that worked at the shelter, asked if I could read her letter. Would that be okay?
Sure.
My name is Ann Damer, and my address is 4023 Vinings Drive, apartment 154, Cincinnati, Ohio, 45245. I am unable to be here today because I had to work. I started as a volunteer at the Clermont County Animal Shelter in 2021 and then became a staff member. I initially worked in the kennels as a kennel tech, and then I moved to the front desk. I left the shelter in December 2023. All the negative attention that's been cast on this shelter is so frustrating and heartbreaking to those who actually know the series of events that led us to the current situation. I stopped at the shelter to talk to Angie, but she was out. I left a note for her with one of the girls at the front desk, but never got a response. In my note, I had offered to give her some impartial background on how things transpired at the shelter. There are many things that I can say about that, but today I want to focus on another issue. Chief Dog Warden Tim Pappas, Pappy to me. We were hired at the same time and went through orientation together. He was excited about being able to make a difference for the abandoned, neglected, and abused dogs of Clermont County. Little did he know of the roadblocks that there would be from either red tape, volunteers who thought they knew better and did what they wanted to, and a caring staff that had been running the shelter when there was no one in charge and weren't used to being told to do things differently. Everyone had the dog's best interest at heart, but couldn't quite work out together as a team. Pappy did not come to the shelter with any administration experience, but he knew the Ohio Revised Code beginning to end. As he learned to be an administrator, he tried to create a team atmosphere. We'd celebrate big court wins by doing staff lunches, and he would host holiday dinners for the staff. Dealing with some of the volunteers was also a huge thing for Pappy to try to handle in a sensitive manner. I've been told that Pappy didn't always follow the red tape rules when it came to things the shelter needed. There are things he did for the dogs without approval that would have taken forever to happen or may never have happened at all if he waited for the county to do them. I've been told he gave the okay and installed the fenced-in area adjacent to the salt building next to the shelter without getting official approval. Maybe he did, but the volunteers I still have contact with say it was a critical move to improve the shelter dogs' morale. They were able to be outside with free run time in a safe location. Did he make repairs that needed to be done and were not being done by the county with the urgency they needed to be addressed? It wasn't his job, but he knew they were things that couldn't wait, and he did it himself. I truly feel, and I'm not alone, that the animal shelter was low on the county's repair priority list because it was just dogs in a location that wasn't in the public eye. Departments that worked in person with taxpayers were priority, even though they were not necessary safety issues like the ones at the shelter. Pappy was able to get his dog wardens fully trained, certified, and credentialed as humane agents through the Clermont County Humane Society at no cost to county taxpayers. This provided them the additional ability to investigate cases of abuse, neglect, and torture of county dogs. He worked to have dog and cat food available on a regular basis for county residents that could not always afford food for their pets. This food pantry helped residents keep their pets in their homes. Pappy worked with outsiders to get things donated that the shelter so badly needed. 2 shipping containers for the shelter to use for storage that was and is so lacking. A new freezer for the small dog room because the old one was not keeping up. Huge fans for the kennel area to help keep the summer temperature in the kennels more bearable for the dogs. Financial assistance so the shelter could take advantage of dog food and other needed items offered by United Pet Fund. Obtained a professional grooming tub and established a room dedicated to much needed baths for the dogs. Dedicated a room at the shelter for a calming room so the dogs could spend one-on-one time with staff or a volunteer in a peaceful and serene environment. It's common knowledge that even 15 minutes a day in an environment like that helps reduce kennel anxiety. There may be more things that were obtained since I left the shelter that I'm not aware of. Volunteer groups also supplied needed items the shelter needed. There are many volunteer issues and claims that I would love to address, but as I said, I feel that speaking on Pappy's behalf is my top priority today. The shelter went from an average of 45 dogs when I was a volunteer to a full shelter of dogs abandoned by their owners, with many dogs being sick. Thank God rescues have been able to pull healthy dogs and find fosters or adopters for them. No one person can or should be held responsible to fix and run a shelter with insufficient space and funds and teams, not those that think they are the know-it-alls and be-alls working together. Thank you for letting me speak my piece regarding Pappy and the things he has done or tried to improve. He has gotten more justice for those dogs during his tenure than ever before. Okay.
Thank you.
Now mine. It's shorter. Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Sharon Wood, and my address is 3032 Old
Hold on just a second. You're out of time, but no, that's all right. We can give you some more time if you need that. But I have to go to the board. Board?
To read her thing, yes.
Yes?
Yes, because the other one was for someone else. and
Who was
now
the
she's
other one
speaking
for?
Ann
herself.
Damer. She used to work at
In
the...
Damer.
Right,
Okay.
okay.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Sharon Wood, and my address is 3032 Old State Route 32, Batavia, Ohio, 45103, Williamsburg Township. Please bear with me as I'm not a speaker, but I feel that these issues are too important not to address them with you. I've been volunteering for 2.5 years at Clermont County Animal Shelter. I have so enjoyed my time with the animals, and it breaks my heart the hot mess that the shelter is in. But to begin, I want to focus on Chief Dog Warden Tim Pappas. When Chief Pappas was hired, I was already volunteering at the shelter. Since I usually only volunteered once a week, I didn't see everything going on, but what I did see, I was impressed. When I would go to him with a concern, which was rare, he addressed it immediately, even if he had to handle it himself. There were some situations that just could not wait for the county. Anne has already outlined the issues in her letter, so I will not go over them again. Suffice to say, Chief Pappas knows what he is doing, and he is really good at it. Unfortunately, he was given not only the chief dog warden responsibility, but administration as well. Since I retired as an administrator for a physician's office, I was astounded that he was handling both responsibilities. This should have been 2 positions. Chief Pappas knows the law and obviously with his background knows dogs. He should not have had to take on the administration duties as well. Chief Pappas has an outstanding reputation in the community with other police officers and deputy sheriffs. Just yesterday, I was speaking with Chief Heron in Williamsburg and asked him if he knew Tim. Not only did he know him, but he spoke very highly of him. Apparently, Tim had assisted Chief Heron with training his own canine dog. So please explain to me why you would ever consider replacing someone who is a retired canine SWAT Cincinnati officer. We could never get someone with that background again. And don't we want the best for our dogs? I have seen firsthand how much he cares and works to give our dogs a better life. I want to touch briefly on the other issues at the shelter. I volunteer each Monday, and last Monday I almost cried when I saw large dogs stuffed in cages because we are short kennels. This is unacceptable. They can barely move around, and since we are so short-staffed, the dogs must stay in the cages longer each day unless we have enough volunteers to walk them. Not to mention the laundry and the enormous number of dishes which are piling up because of the 39 dogs that were recently admitted on top of the dogs we already have in the shelter. I know I'm sounding like a broken record, but we need immediate attention. Angie has addressed concerns, and we appreciate it. But more must be done as soon as possible. She has to wait until approval has been given, and that is a further delay. Maybe a committee of 1 commissioner, a few volunteers, and Angie would be a place to start. Ideas could be addressed and hopefully implemented, as money should not be an issue. Maybe it is too late, and it is best if someone else takes over. We really do want to work with you if given the chance, but so far, unfortunately, we've been disappointed. Please, from the bottom of my heart, don't let the dogs down. They have already suffered enough, and they need our help. St. Francis of Assisi once was quoted as saying, "If you have men who will exclude any of God's creatures from the shelter of compassion and pity, you will have men who will deal likewise with their fellow men." I respectfully ask that you address these concerns. I voted for each one of you, and I really don't want to regret it. I appreciate your time and consideration. Thank you.
Before you leave, I just want to address one thing. This commission does not make a determination on every dog that leaves that shelter. You know, Angie has the full authority of this board to act on their behalf. The only issue that ever came up at that shelter was that dogs were actually removed from that shelter without anyone from the staff knowing it. And so Angie asked for that not to happen. She needs to know where they go because, as you know, a lot of times when they go into foster, many times they're requested back for a particular issue. You've already talked. There's not going to be any outbursts there.
Are they allowed to be moved into rescues right now?
Yeah.
Answer, yes or no?
You've already talked, but the answer is yes. The answer is yes. So let's move on. Who's next? Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Hicks.
I just want to comment first. I'm Chris X, 444 Woodward Court, Cincinnati, Ohio. I want to comment first on the woman that read the letter. I have a condo in Charlotte County, Florida, and that's a normal part of public participation, that citizens can submit letters and they get read by a staff member so that people that can't come to a meeting can have their voice heard from the podium. That would be a thing you should have done a long time ago, because I brought it up before. Okay, now let me get into it. One of the speakers said they don't care about who runs a shelter. I do. Okay, the amount of problems that have resulted from the county taking over the shelter is undeniable. Both of the prior Humane Society operators, I'm sure, weren't perfect, but neither of them caused what's happened here. Neither of them have caused the disgusting decay of that place, the lack of cats, et cetera, et cetera. Since Stephanie spoke out of turn, on Bordeaux, so can you answer, is Bordeaux, is that the name, Bordeaux, allowed to be gone to a Humane Society? Stephanie, please. Can you stop the clock for my time, or have her removed?
Stephanie, we can't have outbursts in here. If you make another outburst, you'll be removed from the meeting. So you've had your opportunity to speak, and so now we've addressed that. Thank you.
And I agree with that. I have the floor to speak now.
Go ahead,
Okay?
Mr. Hicks. You have.
But can you answer the question that she asked about Bordeaux? You seem confused because you said to her that it required board decision, but then you said Angie could decide just a second ago. So can you answer that question? Can Bordeaux be sent to a rescue?
Absolutely. If he's
Okay, you
qualified
have your
enough,
answer. Now, the things I actually wanted to get at is, last time I asked to be able to film at the shelter afterwards. You said from that podium, the answer is not yes, the answer is not no. Then you took the press over there, locked me out, refused to let me in. Notice the press isn't here. They've done their job. Cover for these guys. They've done their job. Okay. So today, can I go over and film?
Mr. Hicks, I'm not going to address you today because the last time when I tried to,
Because you're full of crap, Dave. Because you said yes or
you
no.
accused me of taking up your time.
Yeah, that's it. Can I go over and film today? So this says it all, right? We can't know the citizens, the press, dog and pony show, local 12 in particular, dirtbag reporters can cover for these guys, but a citizen's not allowed to go in and film. But the press can do their bullshit dog and pony show. Okay, here's the things I really wanted to hit on. The November 2nd event, it's going to happen whether we do the slate cards or not. We're going to turn it into a Republicans for the Shelter being reformed event. We will use electronic keypads, so every person that shows up will be able to give input. We'll have a roundtable. I'll invite panelists to talk about it, because these guys do not represent conservative Republican values. Nobody has a government-run shelter. We're the only county that I know of that has a government-run shelter. So I did go back and look at the October 2nd meeting, because you talked about this in commissioner comments late in the meeting after executive session. So I paid close attention to that. Mr. Painter, I would describe your comments in that meeting as ridiculous, putting poison pills into things, because you talk about we'd have to have that the Humane Society take responsibility for the building, et cetera, et cetera. You know that the county is required to have the building. You know that the county is required to have the dog warden. So it's not everything's outsourced. You have to have a building. So that was completely disingenuous, or you're not competent after 3.5 years to know what the county's responsibilities are versus what a Humane Society's responsibilities are. In terms of the bid, this notion that getting a bid out the door will take months is a lie. They had a bid before, right? The issue with the bid wasn't the bid. The issue with the bid was a disagreement is the amount of money the Humane Society operator needed. Dust off that bid, Mr. Eigel. Update that a little bit. Don't put in the poison pill shit he's talking about putting in to make it impossible, because it's asking the operator to do things that they legally can't do. Take that bid. And if you're confused, I think there's 87 other counties. I'm waiting for a number of another county that has a government-run shelter that have Humane Society operators. They have lots of sample bids. Why don't you go to Hamilton County and get a bid pack from them, see what they did. The notion that there cannot be a bid out the door fast is a lie. The other thing, you guys never took official action to say you were putting it up for bid. You just did some sort of folksy, oh yeah, we're going to do it. Hey, Mr. Eigel, do it. Why don't you take an official vote on the record that you're putting the shelter out to bid from Humane Society? Because nobody trusts you. Nobody trusts you. Who here trusts them? You trust them? Man, you are, okay, I'd hate to be you. So Everybody else, except for one woman, doesn't trust them. Okay? So it is time to try to start restoring trust, not with shutting down her, even though she shouldn't have had an outburst, not with not letting me film, and not with some bullshit about how you can't do a bid quick. You can do a bid right now. Dust off the old one, Mr. Eigel. You already did it a few years ago, and the dispute was not over the bid. The dispute was over the amount of money required. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for your comments. They're always so insightful. We'll move on with the agenda. Oh, we have another one? Go ahead. Go ahead. State your name and your address.
5 more minutes and you'll have to extend it. My
Okay.
name's Nikki Potts, 902 Carpenter Road, Loveland, Ohio, 45140. I come before you guys today just to urge the agenda number 21. I personally contacted the office last week. I personally spoke with Angie and Miss Cochran, and I was told that you weren't able to transfer Bordeaux from she was actually at Second Chance Rescue to the League of Animal Welfare. Bordeaux needs, I mean, the volunteers have done everything that they can, to try to take care of Bordeaux, but she needs some place where she's a great dog. She loves car rides. She's not a problem at all in the household as long as you have an only dog household. She just doesn't want to share her people. And, everything was set up last week. I had somebody who was going to take her. I had, there was a spot at League, and I was told that you guys could not transfer her without the paperwork done. So I'm a little aggravated because I hear you now. And if this is the case, we could have moved her Friday, and I'm really, I'll be honest, Miss Batchelor, I've contacted her several times. I needed medicine for Wilbur. I had it in minutes. Linda May needed to go to the vet. We had a volunteer that would take her. I mean, within the day, she was at the vet. So I feel like there's all this. You guys just need to let us help you. We've been doing this for a long time. I mean, I worked in rescue, before it was, before Clermont to the Rescue, before Clermont Cares, that you've got so much knowledge. And if you just let people help you, I'm not sure what the correct answer is, if it's, commissioners run versus humane, whatever. But, you guys just need to listen to us, because we really, at the end of the day, all I care about is the dogs, and, it would be nice if, we had, room for cats and stuff like that too, but, it's, I can't tell you how many times I've left messages for Angie and I've never gotten a call back. And you can't run an organization if you don't listen to the people who are trying to help you. So, and it's good to hear though that, if that spot is still available at League, that, we can get Bordeaux out of there today.
Okay. Thank you. Anyone else? Yes. State your name and your address. Yeah,
You're going to need to extend
we can extend.
on a motion.
So
want
like
a
to
motion?
add an agenda item to be able to extend public participation today past the 30-minute interval, right?
Yes.
I'll make the motion.
It's been moved
Second.
and second. Roll call, Gail.
Commissioner Corcoran,
Yes.
Commissioner Batchelor,
Yes.
Commissioner Painter.
Yes.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
My name's Deanna Smith. I live in Union Township, Clermont County. Do you need an address?
Yes, please.
4231 Edinburgh Drive, Cincinnati 45245.
Okay.
I just want to address that I do trust you guys. We voted you in. We are a team. The community and you guys are a team. I see mistakes on this side. I see mistakes on this side. This is so far out of my wheelhouse. I do not speak. I do not get involved. I go vote, and that's what I do. But I've been watching. This got on my radar a while back about the shelter. I started watching the meetings. I'm not one to come and attend meetings. There are some problems, and I think you guys recognize that. The biggest problem I see over here is you don't know what you don't know. And you guys can't be, you're in charge of long range planning for the county. Animal rescue is a whole different story. Mr. Painter, I heard you refer a few meetings back about, it was when you needed accountability for where the dogs were, about the dogs being assets. They're not. They are. On an accounting ledger, they are assets. They're always going to be a liability. You're always going to spend more on a dog. No rescues are out there making money. So there's that. But we are a team. The way these guys have been attacked in here, I'm not even on my script now. I did not expect to come in here and see these guys attacked. We pay them a salary and vote them in, and then we have to come to them with some answers. Everybody's come here and attacked them. I'm losing time just sitting here not believing what I just saw. One of the things in my past, I'm a retired claims adjuster, handled litigation for an insurance company. You always look for the win-win situation. People going and filing police reports against you and trying to make criminal charges, that's not a win-win. We need everybody working together. And if you're going to come and yell about the problems, then you need to bring solutions. And new to the game, I'm not sure if these things have already been talked, but I see things that you guys are doing, like bringing the trustees over to do some things to help out. Maybe we can capitalize on that. Has anybody tapped into the kids that need community service hours? Has anybody tapped into National Honor Society kids who needs projects, or Eagle Scouts, whoever needs projects? I have a friend who was on the board at Boone County Animal Shelters for years, 20 years, she said. They were constantly running fundraisers, constantly doing Monte Carlo nights, quarter auctions. They did 6 a year, which probably brought them in about $2,500. It's not a landslide of money, but it's something. We need a focus group to come in here and get together with you guys. Somebody offered said, do you want to meet with one? I'm not going to call you out by name. Do you want to meet with one of the commissioners by yourself? No, I want everybody transparent. I want us all on board. And I want us to talk about solutions, not you did this, you did this. You can go to Facebook or any social media and see everything there. Half-truths, misinformation, hate that word. But you can go read it all out there. That's not helping solutions for this problem, and it's a huge problem. I agree with the person who said this needs done now. You can't make money magically disappear, but and I don't even know if you're responsible for this, maybe we can have one less roundabout for a couple years, hate the things, and give the shelter some money to grow. I don't know if that's under your wheelhouse, but I'm running out of time, and I promised somebody that I would mention something, so here it is. The cats. The cats were the one thing at the shelter that if I understand it right, they were self-sustaining. And now I have a friend, 2 women that are up in Greenbrier Mobile Home Park in Batavia, who are out there leaving their families, leaving their jobs early, and collecting cats. They are on target to have over 150 cats by themselves fixed this year. That's not acceptable. That should be under this umbrella too. Oh, I missed all that I wanted to say. Can you give me 10 seconds?
Sure.
Thank you. Because this was supposed to start this. The righteous care for the needs of their animals, but it's the kindest acts of the wicked that are cruel. I don't believe anybody here is not trying to act righteously. I don't think anybody is going at these animals with wicked intentions. But we all got to work together, yelling at these 3 and humiliating them. I didn't think that that's what I was running into today. So why don't we get a focus group together? Why don't we try? Purina would have to be regretting their decision right now if they knew all that was going on. That's it. This is too much for me. I'm going to go back to my little
Thank you.
house and my dogs and cats.
Thanks, Dan. Anyone else? I'm going to move out of public participation. Thank you. Thank you for participating this morning. I am going to move up county elected official discussions to this particular period. But before you go, I understand we have Angie Livesay. She's one of our staff officials. Angie, good morning.
She's on mute.
Good morning. Can you hear me?
We can.
Good morning. All right. I'm here at the shelter. To figure out how to walk around, I think. Bear with me.
What?
Technology.
Hey, Angie, I want to ask you, let me ask you a question first. You have a dog there named Bordeaux. Is that correct?
Bordeaux is not actually on site. Bordeaux is in a behavioral foster home. Yes. Foster
Okay.
placement.
Okay. And did I understand that there was some other place that this dog could go other than where they're at right now, the league?
Correct.
Angie, can I back you up to what happened when I shared the phone call with you on that?
Sure.
About bringing the dog to the shelter and having the vet tech look at and offering 2 different times to come back in?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay, can you just explain that, please?
Yeah. So Commissioner Corcoran and I spoke with Ms. Potts, I believe on Friday, about her request of moving the dogs to the league. And at that point, yes, we did offer a couple different services. We understood that there might be some medical concerns that Ms. Potts had about Bordeaux. So we did offer, at that point, around between the afternoon, we still had medical staff here Friday, we had medical staff here Saturday. So we did make that offer without making the official move to the league at that time.
Okay, all right.
Angie, who are you showing there? Who's that?
So I
person?
wanted to introduce you all to Una. So this is one of our resident dogs here, who's kind of taken up a lot of space in the front office. And I trip over her sometimes, but she's worth it. So. Okay.
Tom, she could be a good office dog.
Angie, would
Yeah,
there
she's
be,
definitely our own dog.
Angie, would there be anything keeping Bordeaux from going to the league at this particular point?
So there's actually a motion on the agenda today regarding the transfer to rescue, and then that will grant me or designate authority to make those moves officially, keeping track of the rescues, registering a nonprofit, that kind of thing.
Great,
Thank you.
great.
Yep. Okay. It is going to be loud back here, but here we go.
As she's walking the shelter.
Please.
I was wondering why we see so many donations still sitting on the hallways when we have front desk not attending to the public and could have been putting those donations.
I have no donation. Go ahead. Just go ahead. Let's follow.
I'll clarify that in a minute.
Thank you.
I'll just show you really quick. We have a lot of I recently joined the whole.
Who's leaving?
This is the road that's currently out. All right, we'll walk through the mopping. Good morning, good morning. This is a small dog. Area. Good morning, good morning. Well, good morning. Hello.
That's a feed. Okay, we can freeze it.
Hard in that shelter with the
Froze.
Wi-Fi in that shelter. Well, I don't know if it's it, but I think it's just pause for a minute.
That just frees the camera.
Yeah, I think it's just what the
Oh, no,
white.
she's going on.
There you go. Just
Okay. Good morning. And then these are our guys back here in isolation. A few.
Angie, currently, how many canines do you have?
74 on site.
And how many pop-up crates do you have employed?
I believe there are two. There's one. I'm sorry. There might be three.
Angie, what happened to the rest of the dogs last week when I was there?
I'm sorry.
I can't about.
Here's Angie, but let me get back to my office so I can answer this question. Here.
Angie, they just talked about what happened to the dogs that were there last week. I understand we had employed a lot of pop-up crates.
I don't think she can hear you.
She will.
It'll be a second.
It'll delay. Did you hear my question, Ange?
I'm sorry, I didn't.
They asked from the floor here about last week. One of the volunteers is here and had been over there last week, and we had been employing quite a few crates. And what happened to those dogs?
Yeah, so we had seven adoptions, I know, in the past maybe 5 days. I believe we've had some go to foster care as well. So our numbers have decreased.
So then we took them out.
Thanks.
Okay, good.
Okay.
All right.
Okay. Thanks, Angie.
Thank you.
Okay.
You bet.
Appreciate you letting me ask the question.
Oh, you bet. Thank you. And thanks for participation today. And hopefully you got to see the inside of the kennels. And it's never good to see when I go over, I don't like to see dogs in crates. I never do. That's not something that I would have ever done to my dog. My dog went to Pet Suites. I employed a camera and the whole 9 yards to even be gone on vacation. So that was kind of my path forward, but we're going to move on here. County staff elected Emily Akers, Director, Office of Management and Budget for the Communication Center.
Hi, good morning, Board.
Morning.
You bet.
So this morning, I'm here to discuss the Communication Center and billing out the rates to the other entities outside of the county, the Sheriff's Office. So the cost allocation rates are necessary to recover the portion of the actual cost of the operation of the comm center above and beyond what's necessary to support the Clermont County Sheriff's Office. So in the past, we take the what it costs for the whole year to run the comm center, which we're looking at 2023. We look at, let's see, number of dispatches and airtime. And there's a full complicated calculation.
Thank you.
So for 2023, the rates as they stand would be government public safety users, $9.7717 per dispatch. Other dispatch users per dispatch would be 9.0937. And then the megahertz user per minute of airtime would be 0.7526. So the total expenses covered by the county would be $2,533,895, which is 83% of the cost. At that current rate that I just read, that would make the billable amount be $506,030, which is 17% of the cost to run the comm center. I have on that spreadsheet options. So for the past 3 years, we've held at this 2019 rates, and that was the balance between the 2019 rate and whatever that year rate was covered by the ARPA funding. However, that is no longer available, so we cannot do that. So I gave you the history of what the rates would have been and what they were in 19, then 20, 21, and 22. For your analysis, there is what the credit would be if we held at any of those rates. Holding at the 2019 rates for the fourth year would be, would be an additional $121,000 that the county would cover. in the middle of that, around $60,000 addition for the county to cover at 21 rates. And this is open to discussion. We do need to make a decision sooner than later because we need to get this to all the other entities so they know what their bill is for 2025 for their budget purposes. Because we would send this bill out now, but it is not due till May of 25.
So if I may, if we went with the 2021 rate, which was right? We went with those rates?
2021 rate the county would cover an additional $59,000, which would be 86% instead of the 83% of the cost of the comm center.
All right.
And if we stayed at the current rate, the 19 rates, we would contribute 121,446.72.
Yes, which would be 87% of the cost, yes.
Okay.
So that would only be, instead of billing 506,000, it'd be 384,000.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And do you have motions prepared for each one of
Motion
these?
Prepared at all 5 rates.
Always make sure we're covered.
Or if you'd rather discuss it further and come back next week.
No, I think
you.
you break it down perfectly for
Yeah.
everyone. Thank you. My recommendation would go with that 21 rate, so it doesn't. Any other?
The only thing, if we don't do something like that, it's going to be such a jump. And for years, all of the departments have always thought that the county should pay all of it.
Yeah.
But I would hate to see us go from the low number and then all at once say we're not going to do anything and it jumps significantly higher. I think that would be such a shock to their budgets.
So let me ask Annalise, before I make a recommendation one way or another, obviously you've been going through budgetary items and with each one of just describe the revenue year that we have had. How have we come out this year as far as revenue? I know we started out at a much higher revenue rate as far as tax than we anticipated. So
The comm center is paid from our general fund.
mhm.
I'm not fully done with the revenue estimate for next year or even the end of this year, but we are trending higher than what we estimated. I think our general fund revenue estimate was 66 million, and we are in this 70 million.
Right.
The property taxes has been a large part. Actually, conveyance fees are up much higher than what we anticipated. Sales tax is trending down a little bit than our revenue estimate. We are still trending slightly higher than last year, but for several years we thought COVID was going to drop that, but as we know, it did not. It is definitely leveling back off. We'll see the sales tax holiday was much longer this year, so we'll get that revenue this month. But overall, the general fund has brought in above what has been anticipated already year to date, and it's not the end of 24 yet.
And I would also throw out there that our anticipated interest when it came on an actual income that comes from all the different departments was well over what we budgeted.
We will have over $1 to $2 million over what was budgeted for interest.
You're talking about our investment?
Our investment
Mhm.
income, yes.
So I'd make a recommendation that, that's up for discussion that we hold at the original rate, one more year. Dispatch costs, eventually we're going to have to address 911, countywide. I mean, that's going to need to come, but as long as we are trending and the revenues are up, this is not going to put a big dent in our budget for 121,000. So, I'd make a recommendation that we stick with the 74,161 for another year.
2019 rates.
Yeah,
I want to
2019.
note too that the county does cover 100% of the infrastructure.
Right.
Correct. So that'd be my recommendation.
There's the motion,
Okay.
if you'd like to read it.
So the motion will read like this: recommendation to establish Clermont County Communications 23 cost allocation rates necessary to cover the incremental cost For users of the system, which represents 17% of the actual 2023 cost of operation of the communication center based on 23 actual billable dispatches and airtime. Actual billings to be held for the fourth year at the reduced rate of 2019 cost allocation rates, invoiced to users in 2024 and payable May 1st, 2024.
That should say 2025. Maybe
2025, that's what I thought, 2025. That's good because we weren't finished reading it. As follows, resulting in recoupment of 13% of the actual communications cost. Public safety governmental user is $7 4.4161 dispatch, 6.6535 dispatch, and 0.7495 minute of airtime. Do I have a motion?
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
It's been moved and second. Roll call, Gail.
Commissioner Painter, would you like to add that to the agenda?
Yeah, this motion will be to add it to the agenda. Gail.
Commissioner Batchelor, Commissioner Corcoran,
Yes, motion to add.
Commissioner Painter.
Yes, so now it's been added. You've heard the reading of the resolution for recommendation to establish Communication Center 2023 cost allocation rates at 7.4161 dispatch, 6.6535 dispatch, and 0.7495 minute of airtime. Do you have a motion for approval?
Make the motion.
Second.
It's been moved and second. Roll call.
Commissioner Corcoran,
Yes.
Commissioner Batchelor,
Yes.
Commissioner Painter.
Yes, thank you. Next up, Chris McClintock. Chris McClintock is the director of our Economic Development Department, and he's going to talk to us about a veterans new golf course here in Clermont County.
Good morning, Commissioners.
You bet. Morning.
I'm going to set up residence because I have the next 3 items on the agenda here. So
You're going to compete with Lyle Bloom.
I'm
aren't you?
trying. Lyle's not even here this week, so
I know you're going to win.
you're letting him off this week, and I'll take some of his time.
Do we even know why they call it Veterans Club yet? I mean,
Well, I've got an answer for you there.
great.
So I talked to Jake Osterfeld this morning, who's one of the developers, and he said that his family said there's not anything special behind it other than his family appreciates all of the things that veterans in this nation have done for us. And they do plan to annually give money to veterans charities within the
Great.
county. So that's what it's,
Thank
there's not necessarily an affiliation with any veterans club or anything like that, but that's just kind of bubbled up as the name. And they do want to hire and allow members that are veterans, but that's not exclusive.
Great, thank you.
So I'm here today to talk about an application submitted for a tax exemption. How do I get this to? Use the arrow. Here, I'll just do it. Okay, thanks. So the county, our office received an application for a tax abatement from Jake and Jeff Osterfield for a location in Stone Lake Township. The location address is 4987 State Route 222, which is in the Clermont Northeastern School District. And these are, I'm telling you the township and the school district for a reason because of the possible tax exemption. So Veterans Club purchased 6 parcels of land. You can see highlighted there in the blue. That's the East Fork River there to the left, and State Route 222 runs up on the right side of those lighter teal lines, which will actually be where the golf course is located. And the cost estimate is into the millions of what it's going to take to construct this potentially private golf club. And this isn't their first time. The Osterfelds had developed the golf course at Stone Lake Hills, which is, in my opinion, as an avid golfer, one of the nicest public courses within Southwest Ohio, all of Ohio, honestly, the way they maintain it. Next slide, please. Just a bigger view. You can see on the subject map there on the right, the star is basically where that's located. So if you went northeast on 222 from here, you would run into it. And if you've been by there recently, you can see that there's some earth moving there it's under construction. Next slide, please. So just to go over what this ask is from the developer is we received an application from Veterans Club LLC for tax exemption on newly developable property under Ohio Revised Code Section 5709.52. And it's different than what you would normally think of when you're thinking of tax abatements that happen on the back end of a development. So this is the first application the county has received under this statute. When I looked into this, the statute was created in 2017 by the state legislature. So it's been around for a few years, but it's new compared to most of the tax incentives and abatements that are out there now. So what the ask is this statute allows property owners from paying taxes on new value of property during construction for up to 6 years or until a certificate of occupancy is approved or is issued, I'm sorry. So this differs from, we've heard a lot of talk regarding community reinvestment areas and enterprise zones recently in the county. So those are property taxes that abate property taxes on increased value after a project is completed. So you would not pay taxes on that new value. So what happens for the 5709 tax exemption is the property was farmland or just vacant agricultural zone land, not producing, didn't have a ton of value. And then once it's purchased for a construction project for a golf course, the value of that land goes up quite a bit. So normally a developer would have to pay the increased taxes on that value of property while they're developing it. So they're outputting all this millions of dollars and paying increased taxes when they're not receiving revenue for that. So the state legislature realized that and created this law that allows for the developer not to pay that increase in taxes during the development. And they put a time limit of 6 years or until actual project is complete and there's an occupancy certificate issued. So it lessens the burden on the developer as they're doing that construction. So basically what I'm asking for is and I think the value of the land as it sits now is about $9,000, so it's not a lot. But what they paid for it is quite a bit more than that. So they'd be asking for a abatement on that value of taxes until the project is done. And they are estimating that the golf course would be open for business in 2027. So, 3 to 4 years, depending on how that goes. And I would like some direction from the board to possibly reach out to the school district and to the township, because they'd be the ones that are giving up the taxable value, the increase in taxes for this time period, and just get a feel for what their thoughts are, if they have any opposition to this or they have concerns, and then I would report back to this board.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe a township can issue this exemption also,
Correct.
right?
Correct. Correct.
Okay.
So if somebody wasn't in favor of this, then we could talk about it, and then the township could certainly take it up as well.
Okay.
Absolutely reach out.
So
Yeah, I think absolutely reach out to the
Yeah,
township and to the
absolutely.
school.
Yeah, we need to talk to
Let them know what's going on in their community.
and then I don't believe there's any other available tax abatements to them following the construction and opening of this project. So following that, they would pay the normal property taxes like everybody else.
Okay.
Right.
Okay. Thank you.
I understand you have the next one too, huh?
I do.
Okay.
And the next one. So next, we want to talk about Veterans Village. We got a lot of veteran topics today. So is Desmond? Oh, okay.
It's hiding.
Look right.
Desmond Mayotte is here from our office, our community development administrator, and executive director of our land bank. So this is not a topic that you're not aware of. It's been on the radar for quite a long time, and we've had, quite frankly, some success in raising money in a partnership with the Clermont Housing Authority. So I'll give you a little bit of background on Veterans Village and then kind of go into why we're here to discuss that. So in Clermont County, there are over 12,000 veterans living here. 750 of the veterans, approximately 6%, are either homeless or on the verge of being homeless. So this is a real issue, not only for our community, but communities throughout the United States. So Veterans Village is a concept that's turning into not a concept, it's turning into reality for a property out on the eastern portion of the county in Felicity. And I believe it's about, how many acres is that? It's 10 acres that's under contract. The Housing Authority has the funds to purchase the property. I believe they want to own the property by the end of the year. Is that correct?
I think the contract is by November 5th.
By November 15th. So another month, and they would actually own the property. So that's a big step, because that was earlier this year. We didn't know if that money was going to be available for that. So what Veterans Village is to provide a sanctuary within a community of veteran support. So the recommendation or the project would build 22 one-bedroom and 6 two-bedroom homes. As you can see, the outline of what they would look like, and up at the top right is a somewhat rendering. It's not an engineer drawing, but a rendering of what it would possibly look like. This would also include a community center that would be constructed on site as well, with the VA agreeing to pay for services for the life of this contract. And I think that's a 20-year commitment for them. So we're talking millions of dollars from the VA to provide services for the veterans they're living on the site, and veterans for the county as well. So where we're at with this project is we have a potential gap in funding of about $5 million. So the updated construction project is about $9.5 million, and that gets us infrastructure, roads, buildings, community center, furniture, everything we need for this project. And so far, we've been able to raise about $4.4 million of the $9.5 million. So we had Clermont Metro Housing Authorities putting in funding. The one-time strategic fund from the state of Ohio has authorized $1 million towards this project. The Community Development Department, the Board of County Commissioners through Home Funds, which is federal home money, has set aside $1 million for that project. Ohio Housing Finance Agency has committed $1.7 million. Federal Home Loan Bank, $420,000, and then Duke Energy, a great partner, has donated $20,000. So roughly right now we're about $5.1 million shy for that total project coverage cost. So, we talked with the executive director for Clermont County Housing Authority. And so what happens if they don't come up with this $5.1 million? Couple options. Could reduce the footprint of the site, which I don't think anybody really wants to do. Or the housing authority would have to take on debt, and that would have to be approved by their board, and so on and so forth. So I know we have some additional discussions about spending the remaining ARPA money that's around. So we just wanted to talk to you about this to let you know kind of what that full gap is and what this project would bring to the community.
Okay.
Desmond, did you have anything else to add?
No, you covered most of it. I guess what kind of started this project from talking with the Housing Authority, the way this is operated is with HUD-VESH vouchers, which is a partnership with HUD and the VA. So that provides veterans, they don't have to pay over 30% of their adjusted gross income per month. And they have those vouchers available. The problem here is those veterans then go out in the community and trying to find an apartment to use those in is very tough. We have certainly a lack of affordable housing, and then since COVID, the inflation on those costs have gotten even worse. When you put on top of that the issues some of these veterans have with PTSD, substance abuse, other issues, lack of credit, when they're going into those situations and competing with other people for those apartments, there's just they're having trouble finding those. So that's kind of what started the project. It would be 28 project-based HUD VASH vouchers. So those vouchers would stay with these units. If the veterans left, then that voucher would stay with the unit to make those affordable. And I think that would be a guaranteed affordable units for 20 years. I think the VA does make them sign on to that. So pretty innovative project. The reason there's a gap in the funding, if you were doing this in Hamilton County or Columbus, you'd fund this with LIHTC funds. Unfortunately, Clermont County is not scoring high for low-income housing tax credits. They consider us urban, but the metrics just don't work out. I think there's a small sliver that qualifies up in Miami Township, but the property's so expensive there, it just doesn't make it feasible. So in general, if we qualified for the LIHTC, the low-income housing tax credit funds, I think the project would be funded already, but it makes it tougher to do one of these type projects in a county such as ours.
Thank you.
Commissioner, can I just add one thing to that?
Absolutely.
Because I've been asked so many times, why Felicity? And the answer to that is Alicia did a survey, and the highest number of homeless veterans in Clermont County is in that area over there. So that's why it was
This
chosen.
property is in just outside of Felicity, almost in Felicity. It's in Franklin Township. So 10 acres, flat, water and sewer is available.
Walkable
Water,
to town.
sewer is accessible.
Water and sewer
Yes.
is available there. So looks like a good site for something like this. Not a lot of other, whenever you're doing a low-income housing project, affordable housing, looking at where you put it. There's a cemetery on one side. There's not dense housing around it, so we're not going to have,
It's farm on the other
So
side.
it's farmland. Yeah.
After this is built and it's in place there, who does the upkeep on this facility?
Yeah.
So where it's really a shining example of what.
And that would be the Clermont Metropolitan Housing Authority.
Yep.
They do a good job with their properties now. From talking with local police and zoning, if there's an issue at one of their properties, they take care of it very quickly, unlike some of the other people that own multiple apartments in the county. So, yeah.
And that's always the question that comes up, it's that when it's built and it's new, it's beautiful. And then a lot of times people see housing projects done, and that's not the case 5, 10, 15 years down the road. That's one of the things that people need to understand is that this is being managed by Metropolitan Housing, and they put contracts out to cut grass, take care of the outside, all of that.
If you look at their properties around the county now, they're very well maintained.
Mhm.
Now, probably much better than in some of our very large cities.
I want to address the ownership of it too. I had a discussion with you.
Yeah,
this morning.
ownership is Clermont Metropolitan Housing. They also have a nonprofit that I think would run it. It's basically the same. I think it helps them with some taxes, but they would own it and maintain it.
Okay.
Generally, boards of commissioners don't own projects like this. They're the professionals at operating these and running them. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. And Chris, you got another item. Talk about broadband, campus
broadband.
ring. Leanne, don't leave. We're going to get to you next. I'm positive.
Best to last, Leanne.
Right.
Okay. So again, I don't want to bore you, but I do want to talk about the background and how we got to this project as well. So I'm here to talk about broadband, fiber, connectivity in the county, and kind of where we're at today. So, and we also have Chris Davis, our Information Services Director, here to talk about the nuts and bolts of the fiber network that I don't know about. But I do know about the construction and know more about broadband than I ever thought I would know in my life. So it's quite an education, quite interesting, especially in the digital time we live in today, where connectivity is invaluable. So the Board of County Commission in 2022 commissioned a broadband feasibility study, and that was before I started here. But my understanding was we were aware that there were probably some underserved folks in the community we possibly have ARPA money that is a allowable expense to pay for connectivity for our residents and businesses. So we received that report in 2023. And at that time, that was commissioned by the Board of County Commissioners. And I will say I'm wearing a dual hat here today. I'm wearing my Community Economic Development Director hat and Director of the Port Authority, because this project kind of spans both of those entities. So we received the final feasibility study last year. And basically what the recommendation was after public input, after looking at everything, was the best way for Clermont County to provide internet fiber connectivity to our unserved and underserved population was to run what they call a middle mile loop throughout the entire county. Right now you have Spectrum Alta Fiber, and down in southeast county you have AT&T that is the providers in the area. Alta Fiber, Cincinnati Bells, when it was telecom, they're the ones that were required to provide service out here. Spectrum doesn't have that requirement, but I think Spectrum serves something like 90% of the county as far as where they have lines. So during that time, after the study came back and said, you run the middle mile, and then we will have other ISPs, internet service providers, that would connect to that middle mile and then be able to run that last mile to the residential homes. So in doing that, it was advised that the county itself shouldn't be running that utility, building that utility. It was kind of out of the purview. So that project was turned over to the Clermont County Port Authority, who has absolute jurisdiction to construct, operate a utility if it came to that point. Because generally that's what would be happening, is if we ran that line and we sold it to other people, we'd be operating utility, we'd be selling services, we'd be having to maintain lines, things like that. So in early 2024, taking that broadband feasibility study and moving forward with that, the Port Authority put out a bid for a high-level design project to get us to that next portion, to actually design that loop that would go throughout the county. However, right when we put our RFP out, we learned from the state of Ohio that they had committed what we learned to be $50 million towards connecting all unserved and underserved population in Clermont, Brown, and Adams County, doing exactly the same project that we were going to do, but for 3 counties. And so I think in August, we actually, Alta Fiber and Lieutenant Governor Houston was down in Clermont County to announce that project. It's a $130 million project. Alta Fiber's putting in $80 million, and the state's putting in $50 million to provide that last mile to every community, every resident in Clermont County, Brown, and Adams. So at that point, we have to pivot. Okay, well, part of that original project was going to be connecting all the county facilities in a dedicated fiber loop, because right now we're operating on different levels of connectivity depending on buildings, just because the way that the technology has evolved and upgrades and things like that. So we looked at all kinds of options. We looked at, okay, we still provide a utility. We run a bunch of dark fiber, which is basically just fiber that's not dedicated to anything throughout the county. We try to sell it to Mercy Health, the school systems. And then you get into like, we're operating utility. That's really not what the Port Authority is staffed to do or tasked to do. So then we looked again, okay, how can we provide service to the county and all the constituents and residents and businesses that utilize the county services, so that we are able to provide top level service and timely service in a system that it has duplication, it doesn't fail, things like that. And again, what I failed to say is, when we learned Alta Fiber was going to do this connectivity project, we thought, well, maybe we can partner with them and lessen their burden. And we had meetings with them, and they essentially said, we've got enough money from the state. We're good to do this privately. We don't need any help from the county. So, and during this consultation phase with the consultant, we determined that for quite a less money, we could connect the 3 main campuses of the county: the Filliger campus, the Bauer campus, and the downtown campus. for about half the cost that it was going to cost to run that probably a third of the cost it was going to cost to run that loop. So that's what we're here today to kind of discuss. Again, looking at ARPA money to fund this project. And so before I get into the actual the cost and the actual options here, I'd probably like to have Chris discuss the nuts and bolts of the network and why it's so important that we would do these upgrades at this point with possible ARPA.
And before we move on to that, just one comment. We've looked at this project. Broadband in the state of Ohio. We'll just talk about that. It's been talked about for a long time. And now, companies come up in a $50 million grant from the state, and they're going to take care of that. Just for conversation purposes, it's not the first time that's ever been done. There has been enough money spent in America to have put fiber into every household there is in the United States, but it never happened. And the reason it never happened and that money was spent, and let's just talk about that. And I'm skeptical. I'm skeptical. And the reason I'm skeptical is simple. It is that the two things that people show on here, fiber pass and aerial versus underground. One of the things that Ultra Fiber and none of these ISP providers, they don't own that. They don't get to call. They don't get to decide when they put aerial on utility poles, and they don't get to decide just cutting into the underground anytime they want. They have to notify, just like all of us do, 800, and they have to wait. And until they have a clearance for those things, they don't get to do that. When you go to string fiber on poles, what typically happens is the people who own those poles come back and they say, we need to do a survey. And they do a survey of all the poles and they say, well, we need to install 300 poles before you can put fiber on them and put the additional weight. Because when you think about it, although it's small, when you stretch it out over miles, it's heavy. And you have to put restraints on poles and all kinds of stuff. So what happens is typically money that gets charged to overhead because they have so much time waiting and waiting and waiting to put all that stuff in that the budget gets consumed by literally the direct costs of trying to do the work in this restricted environment. And so that's just one of the things that, people need to understand. And I totally, hope that they can perform in that manner. But I would tell you that from having experience running fiber in a large area in Knoxville, Tennessee, that's not the case. And the things that I've talked about are the things that burdened us and caused us to incur additional costs that were not covered. So here's what usually happens. What usually happens is ISP providers, they pick the fruit. They pick the low-level fruit. They run these kind of services into areas where it's easy to pick up tons of customers. But when it comes to rural areas and where it really is, you got to run 1.25 miles to pick up one customer, they don't touch that. They try to touch it some other way with some type of cantana or some type of an antenna on a cell tower. And we all know what that gets into. So, I'm just saying, be cautious when it comes to that. I hope that they're able to do that. But I can tell you that the proof's in the pudding at the end of the contract. We'll see. We'll see where that $50 million actually goes and where it actually gets spent. So by all means, tell us how we can connect our campuses.
Well, I'm going to speak just from the Clermont perspective, not the state, obviously. But, right now, CBTS runs our lines and we pay charges to them. Putting this in place, Clermont ISD now becomes the owner of this. So if we have any line breakage or, people want to cut into things, we have to figure out how to deal with that. We'll be the ones that are in charge of that. So, there's pros and cons to that. Cons, we've got to come up with a little more expertise on some of this stuff. We still have to contract with a provider, which we already have for fiber, because if we have a break, we don't have the equipment to polish those lines and reconnect and stuff. So we would need to still have some contracts out there for that kind of stuff. But kind of stepping back, we've already been thinking in ISD, in between the campuses, we use Land Advantage. And I'll go through some numbers, but it's a 1 gig service. So if you're thinking like a McDonald's straw, that's your 1 gig. At some point, you get so much data through there that it starts to clog up and you can't do it. We're approaching that with our backups from campus to campus and, all the services we want to provide, bringing on a video management service. As we move forward, that gets more and more dense. So you have to have a bigger straw. So moving into this allows us, without additional costs, to go to a 10 gig or a 40 gig as the future goes. We control that, not Cincinnati Bell. There's no additional cost other than the small pieces that we would put into our switches that allow those faster speeds. Currently, we pay just over $3,000 a month for those connections to make sure all 3 campuses are together. So it would be a $37,500 a year savings. That we wouldn't have to pay Cincinnati Bell. We currently will not have to have any additional equipment because that fiber would just go from their device into our device. So there's no additional equipment costs or anything there. Like I said, it gets us up to the state-of-the-art fiber. The higher speeds allows us to do things internally faster. But the bigger piece is if the state does allow for potential broadband to all these citizens, they're going to expect us to provide services, better services, faster services. And if we're already kind of starting to look at trying to increase because we're bottlenecking, this allows us to stay on pace or just ahead of the citizen to make sure we can continue to provide those services and not have a latency or problems there for them. Additionally, bringing on video management, like I said, that's video across the network. This would allow us to keep that future proof to get the speeds up and stuff like that as well. Other than that, that's all I had from there. I didn't want to get too deep because then it gets really, really technical.
No, but just talking about the specifics of that, would the thought be there that we, Clermont County, put a contract down the street to actually install this loop that you need at these 3 facilities through a subcontract? Is that the thought?
The idea would be that the Port Authority would actually manage, do the construction, and then turn those actual fiber lines over to the county so that they would actually then.
So you would competitively bid the installation of the underground fiber, and in that they would test it and make sure that it was all workable and put in correct, and then we would take it over, and then you would connect it to the devices and use it.
Correct.
Okay.
And so that's a good segue into the actual the 2 photos that are up here now. So these would actually be the routes that the loop would take to connect all the 3 main campuses. So the one on the left would be an aerial hybrid, which would be some of it would have to be underground just for topographical issues, and then the right one would be all underground. Construction. So again, pros and cons to both. Aerial is a little bit cheaper, but there's some serious drawbacks with aerial. The first being, if we use ARPA money for this, I don't know that we could get it finished by the end of 2026, because we've had conversations with Duke, who own the majority of the poles that are along that route. And there's a lot of those poles based on what this is called as a high-level design cost estimate. There's a lot of those poles that are going to have to be what they call make ready, which, as you mentioned, they're already over capacity or they're at capacity. And just the permitting alone, it could take a couple years and could cost, if there's no issues and we just have to run the pole, it's a small fee, but it could be anywhere from $10,000 to $20,000 if we have to replace that pole and then re-put everything back up. And then you really start to not know your costs and time on that. And
the whole time on that, you have contract equipment sitting idle, but it's
exactly
on the job.
And we want to be as proactive as we can there's not any major shortages of product right now. But when this BEAD money starts rolling out in the next couple years, Alta Fiber starts to do this project in these 3 counties, you're going to see a real strain on the actual physical fiber lines and network equipment and things like that. So go to the next. Okay. So this is the actual kind of high level cost. So if we did the aerial, cost would be roughly about $4.3 million. If we did the underground, it'd be about 4.5. Because it was originally going to be about 5.2, but we talked about why can't we change the route, because they were just going to go the same route they're going on aerial. So that dropped the cost about $500,000. So what we would recommend is that we would move forward with the underground installation of this campus loop. That project would be complete August 25. I always give that a 3 or 4 month window too. So I would say by the end of 2025, this project can be complete if we did underground. And as we also talked about, there's natural disasters, things like that. If you have aerial, it could take months to get that back up and running. If we have a natural disaster and all that is underground, you really mitigate those issues. So just wanted to bring this to your attention. Again, I know the board's considering, what to do with their remaining ARPA funds. So this is a project we've been working on, and we've kind of got to the point where I think we're ready to move forward. If the board wanted to move forward with this project, the port would be ready to get to the next phase, which would be the actual engineered construction, and then we would go out to bid probably February, and then complete the project by the end of the year and have this project complete. So we'll be happy to answer any questions either on the technical side or the construction or feasibility side.
Yeah. Thanks, Chris.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I've taken
No problem. It was informative. Thank you.
Thank you.
Dr. Watson, the podium is yours. You have waited patiently. Is there something we could bring you? Something to drink? Something? No, we're good.
Thank you. Thank you for your time today. Leanne Watson, Mental Health and Recovery Board. I don't know why I have my keys up here.
You want to run out?
Make a quick getaway, I guess. Oh, slap happy. All right, thank you for your time today. So I'm also here to talk about ARPA money, apparently.
There we go.
It's the theme of the day. Again, thank you for your time today. You guys are having a long session today. All right, so I'm here to talk about the Crisis Receiving Center. I've been here once before to talk about this. I think you do have some information in front of you that Tom provided you. If you remember what the Crisis Receiving Center is, I'll just quickly tell you a little bit about that. It's a no wrong door, quick access for people that are in behavioral health crisis. So that's mental health as well as substance use crisis. So it's observation and stabilization at a 23-hour time frame. And it really is not just beneficial for people that are for my system, the behavioral health system, but also for our county as a whole. And it really is a huge gap in the behavioral health system for our county, and is desperately needed in our county. So right now, we are in the process of trying to come up with funding for 2 parts of this project, for renovation for our building, as well as operational costs for the facility. So I'm here today to talk to you about that just totally distracted me. I'm here to talk to you today about the renovation costs for our building. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about the history of what we've been doing around the renovation on the building. So we were lucky to get some funding from the Appalachian Community Program grant that came out the first round in early 2023. We were able to get some funding to hire an architect to do some planning for us. So we actually have a plan in place for renovation of our building. for the Crisis Receiving Center. Complete plan is done. And then we applied in late January 2023 for that second round of Appalachian Community Program grant. And we unfortunately did not get that grant. You guys actually provided a letter of support for that, if you recall. Unfortunately, like I said, we did not get that grant. So we did turn around and apply for capital funding through our state department, which is the Ohio Department of Mental Health and Addiction Services. And that is for $1 million. We are required to have match for that. So 50% match for that $1 million. So the cost of the renovation is, and you can see down at the bottom of the paperwork that you have in front of you, is 2.3, a little bit, almost 2.4, rounding up $2.4 million. And I think you guys are aware that we own the building, and that is actually, we got that through a capital grant from OMAS, Ohio Department of Mental Health and Addiction Services. So we own the building, but apparently do not own the land. So yeah, one of those deals that was made 30 years ago. So we are, with the $1 million we're able to get with capital funding from the state, we're about almost $1.4 million short for the renovation of our building. So we are really ready to go out for bid on that. We're just in the process of trying to find that funding to be able to renovate the building.
Dr. Watson, just to add for clarification for people who are listening or watching, let's go back to what really happened. Somebody comes in there in a crisis mode, and instead of, taking them to jail and then having to transport them somewhere else when they find out that those are the true issues, this would be a place where they could take them, and as you were talking about the 3-day hold, but where you actually have specials there to handle it, certified people. Could you just explain a little bit about that program?
Yes, I sure will. So now, like I said, there is a gap in our crisis system. So what happens now is, and really, police officers are really the gatekeeper for the behavioral health system, unfortunately. So they really are the first people to respond. They're the people that see people, that they get the call, the 911 call, right, when people are acting funny out in the community or where people are in crisis. So they really have currently have two options. They can either take people to the emergency room, which really, people in the emergency room are not trained in behavioral health, right? So what happens is that if they don't meet criteria to be held to go to the behavioral health unit, it's just they're in and out and back in the street. So there's no warm handoff into our system. So we do not know that those people have been in the emergency room. So do you see what I'm saying? So we don't realize that. So they just are right back in the street. So what happens typically is that the police then get another call, and either the person is escalated and they have then either committed a crime, or the police don't know what to do with them and they can charge them with a crime, be it, trespassing or some, minor misdemeanor, and they end up in jail. So that clogs up our system, right? Creates issues in the criminal justice system, and it doesn't do anything to help the individual.
And I would add, just as a comment, it puts a huge liability on if they're Clermont County sheriffs or their other law enforcement agencies, especially if they're CIT trained.
Right.
If they are crisis intervention trained, then they are supposed to act accordingly. And if they don't follow through, or a family member believes that they didn't follow through correctly, then they immediately become the object of liability.
Absolutely.
And so that's really tough for people who are, they are entrusted with keeping you safe when they could take you to a center like this and have a warm handoff with someone who is more qualified than they are.
Right.
So that definitely lowers the liability of what they're exposed to.
Absolutely. And really, law enforcement would be the main customer of this facility. And actually, Chief Deputy Chris Stratton is the co-chair of the planning committee that we're doing. So after we did not get the Appalachian Community Program grant, we did a reset and started our planning committee back up. And two of the commissioners are actually sitting on that planning committee and really, like I said, did a restart and have a lot of the community members, a lot of community partners sitting on that committee, just trying to really look at what fits best, what model fits best. And the next planning meeting will be next week, and we're actually going to be talking about the cost. Actually, the county commissioner is also the county administrator is also attending those. Sorry, I forgot about you. Also attending those meetings. Going to actually be talking about the cost of operations for that facility. So
talk about that a second. How long has this been talked about, planned? When was the first time that not having a crisis center was shown as a shortfall or as a risk on your risk analysis that was done?
You know what? Actually, about 20 years ago.
Wow.
20 years ago. So yeah, we have known we've known a long time that there was a gap between the jail and the hospital, that we needed to have something, an option for people to go to. And then when we started doing CIT, which was our first CIT training was in 2011. So then it became very evident. So when we started training police officers on resources in the community, and then we started mobile crisis. So the whole thing about CIT is, you train officers to be able to identify mental health symptoms, right, and substance use symptoms. So train them that, and then provide them with resources. So mobile crisis, so that you have people coming to them to be able to help them determine what to do. But you also have to have a place for them to take people. So we really didn't have a place for them to take people. The hospital isn't always really appropriate because they may not meet criteria to be hospitalized. So again, there's just that revolving door.
So you have this $1.4 million shortfall in building modifications.
In building.
And then I know you made a request at opiate at the One Ohio, right?
Yes.
Region 14.
Yes, exactly. So then on the operational cost, we did submit a grant for the One Ohio grants, which apparently the Region 14, which is the region that we are in, that was approved to the One Ohio Foundation. We're waiting to hear on that. We're hopeful that I've heard that one grant for Clermont did make it through and was approved. So we're hoping that was our grant. So we're waiting to hear on that. It is very expensive to operate these facilities. So we need to, figure out how to make that, make that happen. And, that's going to be a discussion we're probably going to have later down the road and with the commissioners. And I don't know that you want me to do that here, but that is something we'll need to.
No, but I'll go this far. Look, we've been fighting this opiate epidemic for many, many years. We have collected funds from lawsuits and from all over, and we have waited too long for this, not to commit this money. But we have. Let's get this thing done. Let's get it done today. I'd make a motion that we budget $1.4 million to fix this building, and let's move on to this crisis center.
Commissioner Painter.
Yeah.
We do have, David, is Ryan Spitzer still on the line?
Yes.
So Ryan has looked at all three of these projects, and I just want to make sure, give him the opportunity. Ryan, do you have any comments on these three projects as they relate to the ARPA funding?
No, as I understand them and as they've been outlined, all three are available. If commissioners want me to kind of outline the why, I'm happy to. Or we can kind of just go through at a high level.
Ryan, we're talking about one right now.
Yeah, but let's go with all three.
Well, we can. We're talking about the crisis center at the current. Could you
Yes,
kind of
sir.
just give us an overview on that one?
Yeah, so crisis center, we believe eligible for funding. Part of the federal regs that come with it outline enumerated eligible uses. Those specifically include behavioral health care, including prevention, treatment, emergency or first responder programs, harm reduction, supports for long-term recovery, and behavioral health facilities and equipment. There is also a crisis care component that was in the Treasury Department's final rule in terms of eligible ARPA funding and projects. And my understanding is exactly what this project is quote unquote crisis care.
Yes, that's
So in
correct.
terms of eligibility to receive ARPA funding, we do believe it's eligible.
Okay. And how about the others? Go ahead and give us an overview on those two.
Sure. So in terms of Veterans Village, the one that Chris spoke about a little earlier, our understanding is that there's HUD housing vouchers. The rent charge would be no more than 30% of the annual income, with maximum eligibility 50% of the area AMI. So the affordable housing component is fairly critical in terms of the permissibility of using ARPA funds for those types of projects. One of the categories that the feds have put out repeatedly in the literature is to respond to the negative economic impacts of a public health emergency. And that includes the development, repair, and operation of affordable housing. There is also a number of items in terms of literature that talks about housing insecurity, lack of affordable housing, homelessness, those that are nearly homeless. And so for those reasons, we believe it's fairly clear from both the final rule issued at the federal level along with that accompanying literature that funding the Veterans Village project is eligible. There are actually a number of other communities in the United States that have funded very similar type affordable housing projects that are based on homeless veterans and nearly homeless veterans. There's one out of California, one in Michigan, one in Arizona, one in Nevada that we were able to find. So we certainly don't believe that the board would be going alone on this route. Veterans villages and finding affordable housing for veterans has been a project that has been looked upon favorably somewhat nationwide. The last one that was discussed also by Chris and Chris was kind of the broadband expansion project. We understand, so generally we were involved at the forefront of kind of getting the subrecipient agreement earlier this year. Our understanding, and Chris elaborated on this a little bit, is that the state, who also receives federal funding for similar types of projects, is going to kind of take over what the county first thought this use would be for. And so they came back and said, hey, can we do fiber in terms of connecting the 3 county facilities in Clermont County? We also believe the answer to that is yes, that is eligible for ARPA funding. There's a significant amount of literature in the CFR Part 35 that outlines broadband-related infrastructure projects. The definition of businesses in terms of may funds be used to build or upgrade business broadband connections to schools or libraries. The feds have put out FAQs, and they define business in this context refers broadly to include non-residential users of broadband, including private businesses and institutions that serve the public, such as schools, libraries, facilities, and public safety organizations. So we believe the expansion project and connecting all 3 of those county facilities is eligible to receive ARPA funding as long as the project provides the minimum required download upload speeds of 100 Mbps. We believe that it does. My understanding, and speaking with Chris and Chris, is that this will also connect individuals that use the county facilities. So those that go to county connected facilities for JFS or the sheriff's office for 911 dispatch, they'll also receive somewhat of a benefit because that fiber has been laid, and they can also access it at no charge. So they can use it to access benefits or things of that nature.
Thanks, Ryan. Thank you.
And so, Ryan, operationally, those 3 projects, from a funding standpoint, they would go through a subrecipient agreement with those 3 organizations. Is that how that would work?
That is my understanding, Tom. The Veteran Village specifically, I think in the subrecipient agreement, there's a housing authority, 501c3, that's affiliated with the project that would be eligible. I believe the Crisis Center is also could be a direct recipient under a subrecipient agreement. So the board would allocate ARPA funds to the Crisis Center directly. And then the Crisis Center would have until end of 2026 to substantially complete that project. The broadband, my understanding generally is again that there would be a subrecipient agreement with the Port Authority. Spoke with Chris recently about how that would kind of work on the back end, and we need to make sure that we're crossing T's and dotting I's to make sure that the county can receive the completed project from the Port Authority at the end once it's completed again by the end of 2026.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
So that's operationally, commissioners, that's how that would work. So the board would have to then direct us to prepare those agreements. And then I'm assuming, Ryan, those would go to the vendors and then it would come back to the board for final approval.
Correct.
Okay.
Is that at the desire of the board?
Yes.
And board, for your information, I think that's consistent what we did with the initial broadband subrecipient agreement that went to the Port Authority. The scope of that just kind of shrunk from the entire project, getting the consultant. But I think operationally, that's how we did it.
Okay.
Great.
So how do you want to handle it, Tom? Do you want to handle it? Do you want us to make a separate motion on each one of these to just go forward with
Direct
the
staff
sub?
to prepare those agreements. Now, the question will be the amounts that we've listed. If we fund each one of those in full, we'd have our approximate balance of ARPA funds would be about $23,000.
Okay.
So you'd also have to direct me in those amounts so we can prepare those agreements with those designated amounts that have been requested. And so for Veterans Village, the gap is 5.128256 million. For broadband, Chris, I believe the amount is 4.5 million. And then for mental health, it would be 1.391, just a little less than 1.4 million.
What was the Veterans Village 5.1?
5,128,256, approximately.
Okay. So board, I'd ask, will a motion to add these three items to the agenda?
I'll make the motion, Adam.
I'll second.
Been moved and second. Roll call, Gail.
Commissioner Corcoran?
Yes.
Commissioner Batchelor?
Yes.
Commissioner Painter?
Yes, we'll just handle the first one first. The first one is on the list is the Veterans Village. So the desire of this board to move our staff to prepare a recipient agreement for the Veterans Village and to move this project forward in the amount of $5,128,056. Is that correct? $256. Okay. Do I have a motion for approval?
I will make that motion.
Our second.
It's been moved and second. Roll call, Gail.
Commissioner Batchelor?
Yes.
Commissioner Corcoran?
Yes.
Commissioner Painter?
Yes. The second one would be for the broadband. It would be to move a subrecipient agreement. Is that how we're going to do that with the Port Authority for the installation of the broadband ring in the amount of $4.5 million? Do I have a motion?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
It's been moved and second. Roll call, Gail.
Commissioner Corcoran?
Yes.
Commissioner Batchelor?
Yes.
Commissioner Painter?
Yes. And this is all broadband funds, and that'll be included in the recipient. And then the last one is for a Mental Health and Recovery Board Crisis Stabilization Center. These are for building renovations at the current addiction board's building that they own. And it's in the amount of $1,391,000. Do I have a motion for that?
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
It's been moved and second. Any further conversation, discussion? Roll call, Gail.
Commissioner Batchelor?
Yes.
Commissioner Corcoran?
Yes.
Commissioner Painter?
Yes, go forward and conquer.
Thank you.
Commissioners, I will have those subrecipient agreements prepared and we'll bring those back to the board once we get those to the vendors for their consideration.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Any other staff
Thank you.
discussion?
Thank
Brian,
you.
anything further?
Just want to thank
No.
you.
Okay, thank you.
In the lives of many people.
Beth.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for
And
all
that,
you
yes, sir, that completes our staff discussion.
Okay, fantastic. We will move on to item number D, the consent agenda. Board, consent agenda has been prepared for you. You've had it early and had the opportunity to review it. Are there any items that need to remove from the consent agenda? I would request we remove one item. I want to remove item 12, personal actions, and I want to remove the promotion of the CTC program manager and handle it separately.
Hang on 1 second.
Do you?
Where?
Okay.
Oh, okay.
So that is being withdrawn from the consent and being moved to the non-consent.
So we'll just remove just that one action.
Yep.
From, okay. And otherwise, the rest of the personnel actions in number 12 will be approved through the consent agenda?
They can.
Okay.
They are removing.
Just one.
Just one.
No, I want to make sure I have the right one. Oh, okay. I hit the wrong. Thank you.
With the one item moved from the personnel actions, do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented?
I'll make the motion.
Second.
Been moved and second. Any further conversation? Roll call, Gail.
Commissioner Batchelor?
Yes.
Commissioner Corcoran? Commissioner Painter?
Yes, we will move on now to the non-consent agenda, which we will start with one item from item 12.
Sir. So that is Clermont Transportation Connection, Lisa Workman, CTC Program Manager 1 promotion. Effective date is 10/21/2024, and that's a personnel action.
Board, you've heard the reading of the item. Do I have a motion for approval?
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
Been moved and second. Any further conversation? Roll call, Gail.
Commissioner Batchelor?
Yes.
Commissioner Corcoran?
Yes.
Commissioner Painter?
I will abstain.
Thank you.
Okay. We will move on with item number 13. Item number 13 is a recommendation to resolve and approve and authorize financial budgetary actions to the Ohio Revised Code.
Are we going back?
Wait a minute.
Are we going back?
Oh, no. We got to go back.
We're
I'm
going
sorry.
back.
I went right past 13.
You were
We're going to go back.
We were making session a little bit
Right.
shorter.
We were going to make it super short.
Yeah.
Okay. We will go on to the non-consent agenda, which starts at item number 14. Recommendation that the Board of County Commissioners adopt Resolution 127-24 to approve payment to vendors in the total amount of $5,049,235.85 as outlined in the BCC approval invoice report for checks dated October 16th, 2024. BCC directed prepaid invoice reports and the procurement card transaction report as presented by the county auditor on 10/14/24, and further authorizing the county auditor to issue warrants pursuant to section 319.16 of the Ohio Revised Code. Board, do I have a motion to pay the bills?
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
Roll call, Gail.
Commissioner Corcoran?
Yes.
Commissioner Batchelor?
Yes.
Commissioner Painter?
Yes, item number 15 is from the Sheriff's Office.
Morning.
Morning, Cap.
Good. How about you?
Recommendation to execute first renewal and amendment to the contract between the Board of Commissioners of Clermont County, Ohio and Summit Food Service LLC 500 East 52 Sioux Falls, South Dakota for the inmate food service for Clermont County Adult and Juvenile Detention Facility. Previously rectified by the Board of Commissioners on 10/25/2023 in order to extend the contract term for an additional 12-month period beginning 10/25/2024 and to amend the contract terms set forth therein.
Board, you've heard the reading of item number 15. Do I have a motion for approval?
I'll make the motion.
I will second.
It's been moved and second. Any further conversation or clarifications? Roll call, Gail.
Commissioner Batchelor?
Yes.
Commissioner Corcoran?
Yes.
Commissioner Painter?
Yes. Thank you, sir. Thanks for
you.
being here today.
Thank you.
Item number 16. Yvonne, morning. I should say just about afternoon in a couple minutes.
Yvonne Smith, Benefit Plan Coordinator for Clermont County. I have a recommendation to approve renewals of the listed carriers for 2025 as outlined in the printed agenda, effective January 1 of 2025, and establish the 2025 cafeteria plan and acknowledgement of the rate renewal. I have MetLife Dental which is a renewed contract with a 6% increase. And then VSP Vision Plan, Voyer Real Estate Life Insurance and LTD, Short Snyder for the FSA, and P&A Administration for Cobra Administration. And those are all continued contracts, no difference in the rates or anything like that, or the terms. Also, we are terminating the contracts for United Healthcare Medical, Magellan RX, Paid Health, Tri-Health, EAP, and Voyer Stop Loss, and those are being replaced with the SEPCO contract, which was previously approved.
Board, you've heard the reading of item number 16. Do I have a motion for approval?
Make the motion.
I'll second.
It's been moved and second. Any further conversation or discussion? Roll call, Gail.
Commissioner Corcoran.
Yes.
Commissioner Batchelor.
Yes.
Commissioner Painter.
I'll abstain. Thank you. Item number 17.
Good morning or
Morning.
afternoon. Yeah, not sure. This is a recommendation to approve the request to advertise for bids for an enterprise-grade access control system at Clermont County locations. Pursuant to the specifications and to authorize the clerk of the board to place a legal notice in a newspaper of general circulation on Thursday, October 31st, 2024, with a non-mandatory pre-bid conference located at the Clermont County Communications Center, 2279 Clermont Center Drive, Batavia, Ohio, at 10 a.m. local time on December 17th, 2024, and with bids to be received until 2 p.m. local time on Thursday, January 2nd, 2025, in the office of the Board of County Commissioners, 101 East Main Street, Batavia, Ohio, where they will be publicly opened and read aloud. This notice will also be posted on the Clermont County homepage under legal notices on our website.
Board, you've heard the reading of item number 17. Do I have a motion for approval?
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
It's been moved and second. Any further conversation or discussion? Roll call, Gail.
Commissioner Batchelor.
Yes.
Commissioner Corcoran. Commissioner Painter.
Yes. Thank you, sir. Item number 18. Afternoon. You, Scott?
Item number 18 is a recommendation to adopt Resolution 128-24 to dissolve the Community Reinvestment Area Number 2 located in Miami Township, Clermont County, Ohio, established by Resolution number 151-22, previously ratified by the board on 10/19/2022, and further that the Board of County Commissioners have determined that the Miami Township CRA number 2 is no longer necessary and requests the clerk of the board to forward the resolution repealing the CRA to the Clermont County Auditor. Just quick background. So it was established by this board in October of 2022 with a specific incentive cap rate of 50% for 15 years. So incentives could be offered for a development up there without school board approval at those term length and limit. Meanwhile, in early 2023, the state legislature amended the CRA rules to allow townships to establish CRAs independent of a county. And those abatement limits were extended to 75% for 15 years without school board approval. Thus far, at the project site where the CRA exists, no exemption from taxation has been realized from the property developer, but the property developer now desires exemption terms above and beyond the terms that we established at 50%, 15 years. He would like it at 75% in 15 years based on the new legislation. So in discussing with Miami Township, we determined that the best course of action would be to dissolve our CRA and allow the township to take it upon themselves to establish a CRA and negotiate those tax exemption terms on their own. So that's why we're here.
Okay. Board, you've heard the reading of item number 18 and the explanation that Scott gave. Do I have a motion for approval?
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
Been moved and second. Anything further? Roll call, Gail.
Commissioner Corcoran. Commissioner Batchelor.
Yes.
Commissioner Painter.
Yes. Thanks, Scott. Item number 19. Afternoon, Jessica.
Jessica Powell.
I am here to recommend the approval of Amendment Number 1 for the cooperative purchase agreement between the Board of County Commissioners and Garland DBS Incorporated. Previously approved by the Board of County Commissioners on July 12th, 2023. This is to modify the completion date to October 31st, 2024, effective upon execution and all other terms and conditions of the original agreement, to remain in full force and effect.
Board, you've heard the reading of item number 19. Do I have a motion for approval?
I'll make the motion.
I have a second.
It's been moved and second. Any further conversation?
No.
Roll call, Gail.
Commissioner Batchelor?
Yes.
Commissioner Corcoran?
Yes.
Commissioner Painter?
Yes. Thanks, Jessica. Afternoon, Suki.
Afternoon, Board.
Good.
Item 20 is a recommendation. This is to advertise for bids for services to provide lawn mowing and lawn maintenance for Clermont County Public Water Course and road drainage basin properties pursuant to the specs, and authorize the clerk to place a legal notice in the newspaper starting October 24th, scheduling a non-mandatory pre-bid meeting on November 1st at 10 a.m. And then bids will be received until 2 p.m. local time on Thursday, November 21st in this office, where it'll be open and read aloud. And the legal notice will be placed on the webpage.
Board, you've heard the reading of item number 20. Do I have a motion for approval?
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
It's been moved and second. Any further conversation? Roll call, Gail.
Commissioner Corcoran?
Yes.
Commissioner Batchelor?
Yes.
Commissioner Painter?
Yes. Thank you. Item number 21. Angie, just wanted to say thanks so much for taking the helm there with the camera.
Sure, absolutely.
Appreciate that.
Item 21 is the recommendation to authorize the kennel administrator, or in their absence, the kennel administrator's designee, to periodically authorize the transfer of ownership of dogs available for adoption from the Clermont County Animal Shelter to local nonprofit organizations, following the nonprofit's registration and subsequent agreement in order to expand the network of potential adopters for dogs, following a minimum period of 72 hours of adoptability within the Clermont County Animal Shelter and at the sole discretion of the Clermont County Animal Shelter in compliance with Chapter 955 of the Ohio Revised Code.
Or you've heard the reading of item number 21, authorizing the authority of Angie to be able to let these dogs exit to local nonprofit organizations. Do I have a motion for approval?
Yes, I'll make the motion.
I will second the motion.
Been moved and second. Any further conversation?
Just that it also provides for anyone designated by the administrator at that point could do that. Thank you.
And Angie, while we have you here, this particular requirement obviously wrapped around this morning around a puppy named Bordeaux. And so this would, obviously you have that discretion from this board to be able to, if that's in the best welfare of one of the animals at the shelter. You bet. Roll call, Gail.
Commissioner Batchelor?
Yes.
Commissioner Corcoran?
Yes.
Commissioner Painter?
Yes. Thank you. Item number 22. Hi, Emily.
I have a recommendation to resolve to approve and authorize changes in the annual appropriation resolution number 181-23 for calendar year 2024. These are two supplemental appropriations. One is juvenile court other expenses for $75,000, and that's for the increased appointed counsel fees this year. And the other is the enclave at O'Bannon RID other expenses, and just to put some more budget in order to pay the school pilot payment.
Absolutely. Board, you've heard the reading item number 22. Do I have a motion for approval?
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
Been moved and second. Any further conversation? Roll call, Gail.
Commissioner Corcoran?
Yes.
Commissioner Batchelor?
Yes.
Commissioner Painter?
Yes. Thank you. That concludes our non-consent agenda. Are there any additions to the agenda at this time?
Sure.
Then I would move to item G. I'm requesting an executive session pursuant to section 51.22 G1 of the Ohio Revised Code to consider the employment, promotion, or compensation of one or more public employees. Do I have a motion to go into executive session?
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
It's been moved and second. Roll call, Gail.
Commissioner Batchelor?
Yes.
Commissioner Corcoran?
Yes.
Commissioner Painter?
Yes, we will move into executive session. We will return and we will conduct further business. Thank you. We have returned from executive session. There were no decisions made and no actions taken. We will move on with our regular agenda. Tom, are there any additions to the agenda that we should review at this point?
Yeah, we have a personnel action and a dog kennel to add to the agenda.
Okay. Board, we have a personnel action to add to our agenda. Do I have a motion to add this subject?
Make the motion.
I'll second.
It's been moved and second. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Corcoran,
Yes.
Commissioner Batchelor,
Yes.
Commissioner Painter.
Yes, Terry, I understand you're here to kind of give us the the personnel action here in the description.
Sherry Brandenburg, the Assistant Director with Human Resources. I have an personnel item. It's for Alexander Price at the Clermont County Kennel. He's a kennel attendant. It would be for a salary increase, effective today, October 16th.
Okay, board, you have heard the request for, I guess it's Price Alexander, or is it Alexander Price? Alexander Price. For a personnel action, and this is a salary increase. Do I have a motion to approve?
I'll make the motion.
I will second.
It's been moved and second. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Batchelor,
Yes.
Commissioner Corcoran,
Yes.
Commissioner Painter.
Yes, and let him know he does an excellent job.
You do.
We appreciate his efforts. Board, that concludes. We're down to member comments. Board members, any comments?
I would just say, Mr. Igold, that it was brought up about the contract, I guess, for the prior. you may-
The request for proposal.
Yeah, do we still have that we could,
Yeah, I'm working on that. Yeah, I've
Okay.
reviewed that initially, so I'm going to
okay,
continue to work through it.
thank you.
You're welcome.
Obviously, there's some things on there that need to be reviewed. I'm sure we have,
Absolutely.
from that contract and then from operating the shelter, we've learned a lot of specifics about what we would want to see in a contract like that.
Yes, sir.
You bet.
So it is in the works for anybody listening.
Any other member comments?
Yes, sir.
Let's just talk about a few before we get out of here. Obviously, we obviously get a lot of comments about the operation of the animal shelter, and a lot of comments were put out here today about disease and dogs in peril over at the shelter. But Angie, thank you so much for opening up the shelter today by Zoom so that people could actually see what the conditions were that were out there. There were many claims made in here today about dogs in pop-up crates. And unfortunately, when you take in 39 dogs from a particular place that they have existed into our kennel, you have to house them. Many of the overflow kennels around the Cincinnati area, every once in a while, you do have to go into pop-up kennels, and that is not a desirable condition. So I noticed from the walkthrough this morning that you've done everything you could to eliminate those pop-up kennels, and obviously some adoptions have occurred, and some of those dogs have made their way to fosters. And so thank you. We know that's a daunting task, and thanks to the people who work there every day that made it look like it did today. I have been in there on a few occasions, and I can say that it never looked any different in your walkthrough today as it has when I have been there too. So keep up the good work. We will keep doing everything we can do to try and get you more personnel and more people over there. Obviously, we have open requisitions for the higher personnel, and as soon as they become available, we will accommodate your workforce. So thank you. Any other comments? Okay. With that, I'd ask for a motion to adjourn.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
Been moved and second. Any other comments? Roll call, Gail.
Commissioner Batchelor,
Yes.
Commissioner Corcoran,
Yes.
Commissioner Painter.
Yes, thank you. That concludes our meeting today, the 16th of October. We will see you next week, and thanks for being here with us. Thank you.